Dixon, baseball historian, and coming to you live a second time today. So we're doing some interesting things. So right now, I came on maybe yesterday, I think it was, and I gave an all-star team. I think yesterday it was which team was it? I think it was. No, I'm not sure which team it was. I think, yeah, it was one All Star team. But I thought because of the reception I had that I would come on and do another All Star team. And so this one is going to be the 1922 Al Monroe. Al Monroe was a writer for the Associated Negro Press. And they had, yeah, they had a, you had United Press and Associated Press. But how about this? Associated Negro Press. And so, we had some things that we were doing in black newspapers that were kind of important. And so, Al Monroe was one of the guys for many years. I did talk to people who worked for Al Monroe, and they thought highly of him. And so, he was a guy very knowledgeable about uh, black baseball before the Negro Leagues, when they were called colored leagues. So, he was pretty versed in all of that. So, he would come and especially start and he would pick his all-star team. So in 1922, this is the team that he picked. So I'm going to tell you who the players were, what team they played for, and then maybe a little bit about the player. And some of the things I'm going to talk about come from my many years of just following this history. Also, before I get started, I did mention this in my November 18th this day in black baseball, but I didn't elaborate probably enough. And I want to mention that uh, Gary Sheffield, hey Paul, if I see Paul Julian, thank you. It's the first time you actually caught me live, so I appreciate you being here. So hopefully I'll hold your attention this evening. So anyway, earlier today I gave some facts about this day in black baseball history, and I mentioned that Gary Sheffield was born on this day, but I didn't feel like I gave him enough credibility, didn't discuss him enough. So before I give this all-star team, I want to go ahead and mention some things on Gary Sheffield. So this is some of the things, the notes that I've been writing. So Gary Sheffield was born in Tampa, Florida, and he played until he was 40 years old. And in a 22-year major league career, he was a lifetime 292 hitter, .292, played in 2,576 games, hit 509 home runs, and for 8 teams let's see, wait a minute, let me try this. He played with 8 teams in the national. Well, no, let me tell you that he had 509 home runs with 8 teams. I guess I'm gonna put. So he had 13 years in the National League and 9 in the American League. And of course, he played outfield, but he also played infield too. And so when I was thinking about Gary, because he's not in the Hall of Fame, I had a chance to see Gary play, and you kind of wonder, okay, how do people figure who's going to be in the Hall of Fame? And so I started just thinking about a couple of guys that have very similar numbers in my estimation who are in the Hall of Fame. So like Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks had 512 home runs. Now remember, Sheffield had 509, okay? And Mel Ott had 511. Now Banks had 2,583 hits. And if you remember, Sheffield has 2,689. Of course, Mel Ott has 2,876. So he's right in there with those guys. And he's received a few Hall of Fame votes, but I just don't think that he's really gotten his just due in the Hall of Fame selection. The Hall of Fame selections can be very skewed, I will say that. But anyway, I just thought I would, on his birthday here, I think he's 57 now, and I just wanted to spend just a little more time on Gary Sheffield. All right. So now we're going to go to this All-Star team from 1922. So, and I'm going to see who's here because I just want to say hello to a few people because I don't think Paul Julian's caught me very much live. He says that he's coaching wrestling, but he happened to catch me tonight. He's got over 30 boys and girls. Hey, that's keep working with our youth. We need that. We need more of that. And let's see who we got here. I can't tell what this. Sometimes you get some really weird people saying some things in here. But somebody here, first time catch you, a guy by the name of Royal 417. All right. So we're going to make this interesting for you because I don't know if you've ever heard me break down Negro League players. So we're going to name this 1922 All-Star team, and I'll tell you about the team, the player, and then give you a few facts that I have picked up over the years. So the first one I want to talk about, he selected for third base. He selected Oliver H. Marcel. Now, Marcel's nickname was Ghost. Oliver Ghost Marcel. And great player, great player. And I've written about this guy in my book about John Buck O'Neill because he ended up in Denver. Of course, he played down south, and then he went to New York, played for the Baccarat Giants, and which he was playing for the Baccarat Giants in 1922 when Al Monroe selecting for this team. And but in the 1930s, he caught on with the Miami Giants. And if you remember Buck O'Neill was with him. A guy named Oliver Riggins was also with them. Orville Riggins played for Detroit. They were with them, and a young Buck O'Neill traveled with them in the Miami Giants. And they went out to Denver, and they played in the Denver Post tournament with Joe Alpert's Clothier, what they were called. And interesting thing, they were headed down to Wichita, and they went down and played in the Wichita tournament. And so after the Wichita tournament, they were going to play around Kansas to pick up a few more dates and then go back home. But for Buck O'Neill and those guys, they've got snowed out. I think it was in Hayes, Kansas, something like that. And that ended their season. Early snow in Kansas ended their season. And Buck said that he had to call home, him and another guy. I can't remember his name right now, but it's in my book. And they had to call home, and the parents sent them about $10, actually just train fare to get back home. So they didn't really eat till they got back home. And Buck O'Neill told me the story. He said when he got home, he told his mother, he said, "I'm never leaving again." Of course, when spring training came, he left again. But they also left Oliver Marcel in Denver. And that's how he got to Denver with the Miami Giants. And that's where he passed away June the 12th, 1949. Now, what's interesting is back around 1990, actually, I met him in the 80s. It was a guy named Jay Sanford. I don't know if Jay's still around. Last time I was out to Golden, Colorado, this has probably been about 8 or 9 years ago. We went to dinner. So I have to, he was kind of older than me, definitely older than me at that time. And so Jay was the one who did the work to find Oliver Marcel's grave. And at that time, they didn't have the Rockies. They had the Denver Zephyrs, who were a minor league team. And they were able to do an event with the Denver minor league team. And they put a monument where Oliver Marcel is buried. Of course, he didn't have one at that time. Since that time, Oliver Marcel is a member of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. And I think maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure what year. It wasn't that long ago. It's amazing. These guys were great way back, but the world had forgotten about them. And so a lot of the accolades that they received actually were either in the 90s, 1990 through 99, or the 2000s. They're still receiving accolades and getting in the Hall of Fame. And there's some ball players that aren't even in their state Hall of Fame, and they should be at least there. And I can think of two people. Larry Brown comes to mind, who's not in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. How about Bruce Petway from Nashville? He's not in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. So there's so much work to be done, but it's unfortunate that all those years passed. And I know when I first started doing this history, it was in the early 80s, and it was a different world. And I just rolled up my sleeves and got busy, and I've been busy ever since. But I've seen a lot of progress, but I've seen more. How about this? There's more progress that I need to see, and I would like to see it in my lifetime. So, all right. So that's Oliver Ghost Marcel as third baseman. At second base from the Chicago American Giants, he picked Elwood Bingo DeMoss. Now, we're getting into some serious nicknames. Now, by the way, Oliver Ghost Marcel was from Louisiana, Thibodaux. But Elwood Bingo DeMoss was from 60 miles away from my hometown. I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, and he was in Topeka, Kansas. And Topeka at that particular time had a good assortment of baseball players. Topeka Jack Johnson, a guy who was also a professional boxer, was there. Of course, Bingo DeMoss. Who else I want to say was there? Somebody else. I'm thinking. Well, I know Maffa was there, but he was there later. But I'm thinking about. Oh man, he played for the 1910 Chicago Leland Giants. He was a substitute catcher. I'll catch his name in a minute. But he was there also. Somebody can catch. Somebody can tell me what it is, what his name is. Somebody knows. You might catch it before I do. All right. But he was a backup catcher for the Chicago Leland Giants in 1910. Uh, um, Tim. Okay, I got his first name. I'll get his last name. But anyway, but he was also around Topeka. So Topeka was a good baseball town. And so Topeka is where Bingo DeMoss came from. And initially, say 1910, Bingo DeMoss played for two teams. So he came to Chicago twice, once with the Kansas City, Kansas Giants, and a second time with the Oklahoma Monarchs. So he came with two different teams to Chicago, and that's when they started to discover him. And then, of course, he ended up over in Indianapolis, and but that's how he emerged. Bingo DeMoss, I know I talked to a number of the old timers around Chicago, and they said Bingo DeMoss was famous for his card parties, and so he was a kind of freestyle guy, and all the ball players would come over and hang at his house and play cards, drink a little bit, and stuff like that, and that's how he cruised out in his later years. But Bingo DeMoss, great second baseman, a great bunter, one of the great bunters. You know, I used to coach baseball. And I used to do something that one of the players told me that Bingo DeMoss could do. And so I worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And so I would teach my teams, I coached for 35 years, how to bunt. And so I would, teach them some strategic things like, well, the art of bunting is catching the ball on the bat. So if you can catch, if you use your bat like a glove, that's a good way to learn how to bunt. So when I was teaching guys how to bunt, how to hold their hands and things like this, I would do something that Bingo DeMoss would did. So I would have a pitcher go up on the mound, and the pitcher would throw the ball, and I would turn the bat around with like a pool stick, and I would hit it right on the end and bunt it. And these guys said, "Dude, do that again." I never did it twice because I might miss it the second time. But I always surprised people and did that. And that was something that Bingo DeMoss would do just is a feature for fans. Bunt the ball on the end of the bat. And so when you start talking to players and they tell you things, you say, I wonder, can I do that? And I would go back to practice and I would work on these things while I'm working with youth. So that was Bingo DeMoss, a great second baseman, passed away in Chicago, born in Topeka. All right. For his left field, he picked from the Indianapolis ABCs, Oscar Charleston. Boy, I don't know what you want to say about Oscar Charleston, or how about what you can't say about him. This guy could run, he could throw, he could hit with power. I think that he's the original Mr. October because whenever they had a exhibition series against the National American League team in the fall, they would always recruit Oscar Charleston because he's going to come in and finish your team, and he's going to finish the other guys off. And that was Oscar Charleston. So he was one of the all-time greats, and you can read a lot on him. He's a member of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, and I've seen his plaque. I probably have a picture of it somewhere around here. But that's Oscar Charleston, one of the all-time greats. I know Buck O'Neil said that he was the greatest player that he ever saw. Now, it's interesting because people talk about great players all the time. Who did Saul White say was the greatest player he ever saw? Amazingly, it was Bill Monroe. Bill Monroe was the greatest player he said he ever saw. Now, this guy coached Ruth Foster, Saul White did, Ruth Foster, Home Run Johnson, and Charlie Grant, and just a whole bunch of good ball players. But he thought the greatest ball player he ever knew was Bill Monroe. And we're not talking enough about Bill Monroe. I might also mention, too, going back to DeMoss. DeMoss is a member of the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, and I was part of that selection process. We were able to get 11 ball players in 1 year, and I was able to go down and present on their behalf. And so he was one of those players, Bingo DeMoss. Okay, so we had Oscar Charleston. Also, we have his next selection from the Chicago American Giants, the center fielder, Cristobal Torriente. So once again, another great player. I'll tell you a story. I think it was 1918 or 1919. No, I take that back. It might have been 1920. Babe Ruth went down to play in Cuba. Well, while he was down there, he hit one home run. and he played many games against Torriente. But Torriente actually hit 3 home runs in one game when Ruth was playing on the other team. So this guy showed up Babe Ruth down in Cuba. But once again, it took many years for people to recognize the greatness of Cristobal Torrente, who died in 1938. He also played the latter part of his career with the Gilkerson Union Giants. And how about this? He also pitched. A lot of people don't talk about him as a pitcher, but he was a pretty good pitcher as well. But he hit for power, could run. And I know he played 1 year with the Kansas City Monarchs. Interesting, what you would think is the most lopsided trade ever. They traded George Sweat for Cristobal Torrente. And now Sweat is one that I was able to get in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Of course, Torrente is in Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame. And turned out it was a good trade for Chicago because Torrente didn't always, sometimes he created some problems. And so he came to Kansas City, and then he created some problems in Kansas City. As a matter of fact, he sued the Kansas City team in 1926 because he gave his some jewelry. He had a gold chain or whatever to the trainer, who was Jew Baby Floyd, and somehow Floyd lost it or something like that, and so Torrente sued the Kansas City Monarchs. Of course, 1927, he's not there anymore. He's out with Gilkerson Union Giants. So that's Cristobal Torrente, just a great, great outfielder, and I'm not surprised that he's on this team. He also picked as his shortstop Walter Dobie Moore. Dobie Moore was one of the great ones. Dobie Moore, had he played longer, would have been in the Hall of Fame. Dobie Moore, after a night of partying in 1926, partying after a game, he went down, and a lady actually shot out of a window, said that he had some kind of dispute with her, and as he was leaving, she got a gun, and she said he was about to throw a rock or something in the house. Anyway, she shot him in the leg and fractured the major bones in his leg, and that ended his career. But up until that point, this guy was outstanding, simply outstanding. Walter Dobie Moore from Atlanta, Georgia, and was in the 24th Infantry, 25th Infantry with Bullet Rogan and a bunch of other guys. And matter of fact, he was in the 25th Infantry with another guy that's on this All-Star team. So I'm going to jump across here, and that is going to be Oscar Heavy Johnson. He was picked as the right fielder on this team. Now, in 1922, you can go look this up. Now, if you go look up the statistic just from the Negro League, so the statistics that are online and a lot of people don't realize, it's not an entirety of all the games. It's just the games that they played against each other in the league. So I want people to know that. So this is not all the games. It's just the games that were played against other league teams in 1922. So the few games that won't make it in there, for instance, in 1922, Carl Mays, you probably heard of him. He was the guy who threw the pitch that killed Ray Chapman. He came to Kansas City, played an exhibition game. Oscar Johnson hit a home run off of him. Shortly after that, Babe Ruth came with the Bob Musial, and they were down at Association Park. And before the game, Babe Ruth was putting on an exhibition, hitting balls out the park. But when he got to the game, who do you think hit the home runs? Oscar Johnson. Babe Ruth had 4 singles, 2 off of Rogan, 2 off of Rube Curry. But the only home run hit that day was by Oscar Johnson. And guess who he hit it off of? Well, remember Babe Ruth? Well, he decided he wanted to pitch part of the game, and Oscar Charleston took him deep. Now, those games won't appear in those statistics, but these actually happen, and you can check them out. I think I wrote about many of those games in my book, Wilbur Bullet Rogan and the Kansas City Monarchs. So, yeah, so you had actually Walter Dobie Moore, who was in the military, 24th, 25th Infantry. And then you had Wilbur Bullet Rogan, who I'm going to ready to talk about, who was picked as the pitcher on the team, the 24th Infantry. You have Heavy Johnson, right? So you got Moore, Johnson, and how about this? Charleston was actually in the military too, a little bit earlier. Of course, he was only there for a year or two, and he went home because they joined up. They were 13, 14 14, 15 years old, moving their age around, and back then they didn't check as well. So, but Charleston was actually in the military in that same unit as well. So it's kind of interesting that there's some great history out there related to the military. So you can imagine that military team must have been incredible as well. And matter of fact, I know it was. So okay, so we have Walter Moore, and then I jumped across to Oscar Johnson. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the catcher for the team, and the catcher was Raleigh Bismacky. Now Bismacky comes out of Eagle Pass, Texas. Now I've talked about this before when I was doing research early on. I identified that uh, Biz Mackey, his one of his relatives was Riley Odoms, who played football for the Denver Broncos, and a lot of people don't know that. So that's all his family. And Riley Odoms, I don't know if he's been in any Hall of Fame or not, but Riley Odoms is a great football player. So you can actually connect some of these baseball players to their family members that you know in other sports. So anyway, Biz Mackey, great catcher. And what can I want to say about Mackey? Well, Mackey ended up passing away in Los Angeles. Now, he ended up being like a tutor for catchers like Roy Campanella later on. And so Campanella thought a whole lot of Mackey, thought he was one of the greatest catchers defensively. But of course, when it came to the greatest catcher of all time, not defensively, but certainly and from a hitting standpoint, of course, it was Josh Gibson. But uh, these are the guys who helped other people. So Riley Biz Mackey is the catcher on the team. Now, one of the sleepers on this team that people don't talk about very much is a guy by the name of Robert Hudspeth. Now, Hudspeth, they called him High Pockets. Now, I don't know if you know why they called him High Pockets. It's the way he was built, and so it was like his pockets were almost on his back. So you've seen people built like that before. So the players nicknamed him High Pockets, right? And so that was High Pockets Hudspeth out of Texas. And actually, he was born in the same town. It was a place called Luling, Texas, where Mackey got his start playing ball down in Luling. And this guy was from Luling. So Hudspeth passed away early. Now, he was a World War One veteran as well, but he passed away in New York in 1935. So they don't talk about him, born in 1894, but passed away in 1935, pretty short life. But he's one that they don't talk about much. I do have some wonderful pictures that came from the Wilbur Bullet Rogan collection of Hudspeth. So hopefully I can talk about him more. And believe it or not, I've never featured those pictures in a book. All right, so we're down to the last few. Actually, I think I'm down to the last one. And it's a picture, Wilbur Bullet Rogan. Now, I don't know if you noticed all these great nicknames. We've had Ghost, we've had Bingo, we've had Dobie. Who else we have? We had Biz, we've had High Pockets, we got Heavy, and now we're down to Bullet Rogan. Bullet Rogan, Wilbur Bullet Rogan. Actually, his first name was Charles Wilburn Rogan, and he shortened it to Wilbur Rogan. I know a lot about him. I've written an entire book about him called Wilbur Bullet Rogan and the Kansas City Monarchs. And just so happens that he was born in Oklahoma City, but he was born in the town where I was born, which is Kansas City. Right? He wasn't born there, but he grew up in the town where I was born, which is Kansas City, Kansas. So as I played baseball around there, I knew many people through my church. Especially there was a guy who was a historian there named Orrin Murray who grew up with Rogan and his brother Willard. And so he knew them very well. Also, when Rogan came to Kansas City, Kansas, it was after his mother had passed. So he came there with his father and his brother Willard. So the three of them got there. But when he was in Kansas City, he married a lady named Ophelia. And I knew Ophelia's granddaughter. She's passed away now. But I knew actually Ophelia's granddaughter. And so I was able to get a lot of family information related to who she was. And Ophelia is buried in West Lawn Cemetery, the same cemetery that my family is buried in. And by the way, it's an African-American cemetery. So there was a lot of segregation right in the Midwest. So we even had our own black cemetery. And Kansas City, Missouri has two. They have Lincoln Cemetery, and I'm trying to think the other name. people like, let's see, over in Lincoln, Charlie Parker is buried in Lincoln. Hurley McNair, Quincy Gilmore, who's the traveling secretary. So all of this is history that we don't talk about enough. And so this gives me a chance when I talk about an all-star team to talk about some people. And once again, Hudspeth is one that you don't hear that much about. You don't hear as much about Oliver Marcel, and because they're not in the various Hall of Fame. Now, I will say Wilbur Bullet Rogan is in Cooperstown. He's also in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. The Kansas Baseball Hall of Fame, not the Sports Hall of Fame, but he's also in the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame as well. And Oscar Johnson, he was recently put in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. He's in the Kansas Baseball Hall of Fame, and I accepted his award in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. And so I accepted the award, and since we couldn't identify any family members, I took that award down, and now it's down at the Negro League Baseball Museum. So hopefully one of these days they'll get a chance to display that. So yeah, so these guys have made monumental achievements, and oh, don't let me forget that Mackey is also a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. So guys, that's about it. This just gives you an idea. This is probably about 30 minutes, but these are all people that I want to talk about. And I have to tell you this, guys, I'm not what they call a one-trick pony. So I will tell you about a lot of guys that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, there are people out here, they pick one player or two players, and they ride with those guys all the way. And I appreciate that because they'll do a lot of research. But guys, there's so much love that needs to be spread around on all these players. And while I'm on that subject, I'll leave with this. I'll leave with this, and you probably can appreciate this. I used to go and I will see somebody, they might say, okay, I'll use it. They'll say the 1934 Pittsburgh Crawfords were one of the all-time great teams. And they'll say because they have 5 Hall of Famers or something like that. You can't judge the ability of these teams, the greatness on these teams, by how many people are in the Hall of Fame, because there are many great players who will never get in the Hall of Fame. So it's an easy thing. When I hear that, I just know people haven't done much scholarship because they're just pointing to think that these are the only guys that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So if it's got 3 Hall of Famers, but some of these teams probably had 8, 9 guys should have been in the Hall of Fame had things been recorded properly and have people being actually presenting their history. And so that kind of does it for me, guys. So let me see. I'll say a few things and then I'm out of here. So Royal 417 said, first time catching you live. Hopefully you're still here. I can't tell. So somebody said impeccable hand-eye coordination to do that. Oh, well, hey, I'm one of these people. I used to recruit baseball players by a simple thing. I would go out, I would take a plastic bat and take a big ball about this big. I'd throw it up in the air and I hit it. And so I said, who can do this? And then kids would volunteer. Of course, they couldn't throw the ball up and hit it, the big one. But by the time I left, I would pull out a broomstick. And I pull a penny out of my pocket, throw the penny up in the air, and hit the broomstick. I said, hey, if you sign up, I can teach you how to do that. And I said, take this form home to your mother, to your dad, tell them you want to play baseball. And that's how I recruited players. Believe it or not, recruited a lot of players. My last year in RBI, which was, what year was that? 2009. I recruited over 1,200 players from the inner city, all ages, to play baseball. All right. So here we go. Okay, Charleston was a member of the 24th Infantry. Yep, that is correct. And let's see. Thank you. Very interesting. I hope to watch more in the future. I've heard you speak a few times. Okay, I appreciate that. Previously, and I always learning from your experience. Last time was in Ottawa, Kansas. Oh man, that was a few years ago. I need to go back to Ottawa. I'm still a member of the Kansas Humanity, so I'll speak quite a few times in Kansas this coming year. I've already had some things for February, so I know I'm going to be in, believe it or not, Great Bend, Kansas. And whenever I go down to Great Bend, I always stop by the cemetery and leave some flowers by the great photographer and movie producer Oscar B. Shaw. He's buried in Great Bend. A lot of people don't know that. So when you go places and you know people are there, you always try to bring recognition, and that gives them some more media. And of course, I can't go to Topeka without stopping by Dink Matho's grave. Do that all the time, maybe 3, 4 times a year. And so guys, but this is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing, is bringing these guys out of the dark into the light so we can celebrate them. So thanks everybody for enjoying, and I'm glad some of you guys were able to catch me. If you enjoy what I'm doing, make sure that you subscribe. I'm trying to build up a network, and I'm going to keep on researching and bring you information. I've got some new books that I'm working on, and I'm probably going to break those books down on this place here, and because I can tell my story a little bit different than maybe if I'm out speaking on it. But I'm out speaking all the time. So, all right. So thank you guys. Have a nice evening, and I will be back. I'm back every day. I don't know what time I'm going to come on all the time, but I am here frequently. All right. This is my second time today. So, all right, guys. Thank you, and have a good evening. And I appreciate you, and I love everybody for joining. And let's keep on making this game great for the next generation.